I definitely have to give credit where it's due, and the fact that despite Alice and Isuka once again going to the same location that just so happened to be a casino, they avoided them actually meeting up despite, once again coincidentally, ending up at the exact same spot despite odds saying that's completely impossible. I'll be the first to admit, and if you've been watching these reviews, you know how much I love Our Last Crusade. I get not everyone will, and people say, oh, there's just a bunch of cliches kind of like butting heads to see which cliche will be the dominating factor of the show. Those cliches end up brewing into what I consider to be Our Last Crusade and become different because they use that cliche in its execution to become something a little more interesting with this whole war story. With that said, I actually was a tad worried with the first 5 or so minutes of this episode, because once again seeing them in a pretty normal situation, this time they're at a casino, we're just gambling, we're on vacation before the next mission, you knew there was going to be, once again, Alice and Isuka would bump into each other, she would be upset, he would kind of like it, and there would be pretty much the same formula as episode 2. While I enjoyed episode 2 a lot, I didn't want to see a repeat of that. I think episode 2 served a purpose in order to really let them get together, understand why they do have a connection as we go back into that series. With that said, I was pleasantly surprised by the fact that they didn't let them actually bump into each other. They did have interactions with external factors. Alice being able to win the jackpot, her being a billionaire in this world probably, has no need of money. One of Isuka's comrades is in need of that money, so their captain can buy a tank, which is kind of hilarious. So they do get this like slight interaction, but it's not the same thing we've seen before. And I like that. And in doing so, they actually touch upon why they do coincidentally continue to meet up with each other, which they didn't have to do. But the fact that this is a world with seemingly magic and demons and angels and whatever else mythical creatures are out there, it makes sense that fate is an actual thing. Fate is a trope that I'm usually not a fan of. The idea of like, you can just write it in a way that says, oh, the reason this can happen is because fate said so, I think it's a really big cop-out. The thing with this show, though, is that because it's so ingrained to the world, the idea of prayers and blessings, I mean, in this episode, Alice talks about basically consolations and, you know, what days of the week have good luck. That's something that's actually a part of their system. So using fate in this way, I wouldn't say is a way for the author to skate around it. Rather, they have a foundation that they find is fun. Them bumping into each other but not supposed to see each other. Them having fun but not supposed to be having fun. It's a fun design, and I enjoy that interaction and that style of banter before they actually have to fight each other on the front lines. At the end of the day, though, by introducing it as fate and the idea that no matter what happens, they will always be around each other because most likely they are the two people that are going to stop this ever-growing conflict, I think actually serves a major importance into this story, which maybe not everyone will agree with me, and maybe some people say it's just an easy way to say this is why we can keep having them bump into each other and not have to explain it. At the end of the day, I think if you're going to continue keeping them together and wanting to progress their relationship, you have to have them continue to bump into each other. And even though the neutral city is for both sides, it's a large city. There's no way they would naturally be able to find each other every single time they go there. So you have to have something in place in order to make the viewer say, I can understand why they continue to find each other. And honestly, I don't see any other way other than fate, which you're not going to hear me say often on this channel. I don't even think I've ever said in any of the reviews I've done over the years that fate is a good way to explain something. But honestly, I would say it is in this case. This episode, I think, definitely improved the second half onwards, but the first 10 minutes or so with the more funny moments with the casino, I think were great. It was the fortune reading, which I really liked, because I love the idea that, like, they're literally in the same position, but they're usually backs are turned, or, you know, Alice leads the fortune teller, and then you see Isuka's group approach the fortune teller. The fortune teller just knows what's up, and usually I would say the fortune teller is full of bullshit. This case, based on the world, based on the systems at play, it seems like she knows the future and fate, and she's probably like, oh, I know what's going to happen. I'm not sure if that smile was an evil grin or a happy grin, if there's going to be some love tragedy, or if it's going to have a positive end, but this character probably knows more than any of us watching. With that said, the second half and the mission overall, the original mission seemingly got tossed out the window in favor for another, which you have one character basically saying that she's going to be playing the devil herself, and it sends Isuka's group into kind of a weird suicide-looking mission, is the best way to put it. It feels like this is a mission destined to fail, and especially because Alice is going, I'm curious to see what's going to happen, because our boy Isuka's already in a pretty bad spot. If there's any indication that he's working with the enemy, especially the top-ranking soldier, this guy is going back in the slammer, if not getting his head cut off. And it feels like because of the person kind of leading the operation here, it was kind of like a crisis suit. If anyone ever played the Crisis games, which are pretty fun, it kind of reminded me of that. It's like apparently a camouflage-like suit probably increases speed and strength, things like that, but it looked pretty cool. I mean, it's off-putting from everything we've seen so far, but in a world where some people are casting ice magic and others are using swords while cutting down bombs, I think it's completely believable that they'd have some sort of tech that kind of blends it. And I think that's one of the more fun factors about the action, is that it blends medieval-like magical settings, isekai-like settings, into a more futuristic military, and you have them clashing together, which is kind of like why I like the one anime Gate that came out a while back, just for the overall idea of magical meets military. In this case, I actually think they're doing it a lot better because it's a lot more focused and I think more dialed down to what it wants to be, which helps it in its favor immensely. But I did like that moment where you have this guy saying like, it's just a few people gone, we're not going to rescue them. And Isuka tries to be like, okay, well, I worked with this guy back in the day, and he's just like calling him like a traitor and everything. And honestly, from everyone's perspective, I don't blame them for looking at Isuka as a traitor because of how they're raised and how they're almost brainwashed by their officials to say this war is perfect and we should do this and witches are horrible, evil scumbags and we should kill them, etc., etc. But I did like the fact that there's a couple of moments in this episode that really break away from just letting the main character take priority and take the initiative because he's the main character and people are just going to kind of listen to him. At the end of the day, who Isuka is talking to is going against the chain of command. Like, what he's doing can get him severely disciplined. He's talking to him and he's demanding answers, and only a captain can do so. And the captain in this show for Isuka Squad doesn't really feel like a captain, and I've seen some people call that out, and I completely agree. And I do hope down the line we understand how she did get promoted to that rank when it seems like characters like Jin or even Isuka himself would be more suited to be the captain of this group. Isuka makes sense not to, just because he is a traitor by all sense of the definition, but someone like Jin makes way more sense to be the leader based on what we've seen thus far. So I'm hoping down the line we understand how she did get that promotion. If we don't, that'll be a tad disappointing. But it's nice to see that she did take the initiative in this episode to demand those questions even if she didn't get answered. And hell, they even had a fan service scene in this episode that actually made me laugh. Her walking out of the shower getting embarrassed and not realizing like what she did until it happened. That's a typical trope you get to see, but the reactions from the others was glorious. Jin not really doing anything, the girl just being like, oh yeah, you're definitely a mature woman, and then our boy just kind of like head in his hand just being like, Captain, put on some damn clothes. Rather than the traditional flustered, oh my god, I can't see this, she got that way, but they were just like, that's our captain for you, and it actually made me giggle. Oh, a little giggle, nothing extraordinary, but it was nice that they're able to use something like that, which typically I'm like, okay, really, this serves no purpose. It didn't serve any purpose here other than fan service to give you some eye candy, but it was funny at the end of the day, at least for someone like me. Overall, I thought this was a strong episode. I'd say this was probably one of the more blended episodes of the interactions and then the military side. And I think if this is a good indicator of the show going forward, now that there is an established relationship between these two, them sometimes bumping into each other or just having that kind of like they almost meet because they're connected by fate, and then having military operations, I think that's a good sign for the show going forward. Not going to always blow everyone away. It's still a show that I really, really enjoy. And what can I say? I'm always looking forward to more. But whatever you're feeling about the episode, do let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like to show your support. And remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't been new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.